Hi there, my name is Lee, and this is my assignment, part of my assignment 3 submission, and it is a presentation about the system I created for the fake regulatory board. I call it PIRN, and they are in the business of regulating nurses. Nursing regulatory bodies ensure that nurses are safe and can provide safe care, so they give out licenses, and they also deal with complaints against nurses. So the system will allow you, as I'll go over, it will allow members of the public to submit complaints, and there'll be mechanisms for the staff to manage those complaints. So the purpose and scope, the purpose was to create an interface that follows the principles of good human-computer interaction design to help the board convert from paper workflows and processes to electronic. So right now they're in the fake college that or board that I'm talking about is in the they have all paper. There's no electronic, so this will be sort of the first computer system that they'll be using. So the scope is to create the system that will allow management of applications for nursing licenses, as well as manage complaints received about nurses. This will consist of a public computer in the front end, as well as staff computers on the back end. So the main tasks of the system will allow nurses to apply for the new license, to submit an application for renewal of an existing license, as well as allow anyone that comes into the office on this public computer to look up the status of a license to make sure a nurse is safe and has no conduct. The system will also allow board staff to approve or deny these applications based on their own business logic. Also, it will allow members of the public to submit complaints about nurses and allow board staff to manage and deal with these complaints. So for my walkthroughs, I use a task-centered walkthrough approach, and that was explained in detail in my assignment 1. But I created real work tasks that mirror what real users would do in the environment, as I found in my discussions with subject matter experts. I then stepped through each task, keeping in mind that I was performing the task as the person I had described in the user persona. So these in assignment 1, I created a number of people who had specific needs, and so I performed the tasks as though I was that person in the persona. So as I was a nurse coming in, a new nurse coming in. This allowed me to come up with some of the initial ideas for what these people would need as they completed these tasks. So how the different low fidelity prototypes were developed and evaluated. So I brainstormed a few different prototypes by creating paper-based mock interfaces that I thought would allow the users to perform the tasks that I discovered in the walkthroughs that I just mentioned. I then thought critically about good and bad points of each design type, and I refined the principles, and I find those based on the principles of good human-computer interaction to create my final paper design. For my final evaluation, so after I did the design process on paper, I implemented it, and then my final evaluation was based on a heuristic evaluation. This type of evaluation uses 4 to 5 subjects who are unfamiliar with the system. So I brought these subjects up to speed with the 9 heuristic principles, as well as the background and scope, the purpose of the system. I asked them to evaluate the system based on their own opinion of what works well and what doesn't work. And so then I asked them to walk through the main tasks of the system while I recorded their feedback. So I got a lot of really good feedback from that. So I think that was definitely a good process to go through. So a brief overview of the implementation technologies used. So the technology I decided to use were HTML, CSS, and JavaScript. HTML provided the structure of my application, sort of the framework, the bones. Cascading style sheets, CSS. It was the look and feel, the design. So it allowed me to style the elements of the DOM, the document object model. And finally, JavaScript, which was my favorite to work with, was that added all the moving parts like error checking, data saving, searching, timers, defaults for data, just for example. And I'll go through that as I go through my my examples, my screenshots below. Discussion of the design rationale of your interface. So overall, I feel I've built a lot of good features that makes the experience of using the system pleasant and productive. I feel the forms are well laid out with instructive field names and helpful placeholders. Errors are prevented where possible by including input constraints such as the date fields. When input can be refined to a list, I use drop-down fields to provide clean data, as well as limit misspellings and make data entry easier for the nurses and the public. The layout is consistent through the whole application, so a nurse who applies for a license and then comes back to renew the next year will have a consistent experience. So I'll also talk a bit about sort of all of those as I go through the screenshots. But the design is, as much as I could, is based on good principles of human-computer interaction. So I'll take you through my system sort of quickly here. So when a nurse or a member of the public lands, so they'll come into the foyer of the fake board, they'll sit down at this public computer, and this is what they'll see. So they see they've got 4 options of things that they can do. They can apply for an initial license, they can renew an existing license, they can look up a license, or they can submit a complaint. So I've tried to make these, the buttons stand out as, here's something you can click on, here are your options. I differentiated them from sort of the headings at the top. And I also I outline the headings as sort of the H1, the name, H2, the portal can be used by anyone for the options listed below, it's pretty clear, and then 3 is smaller, note that all applications will be cleared after 20 minutes. So that's important for the new user to know, because we don't want someone to get halfway through their application, remember, oh, I forgot my ID in the car, run to the car, somebody else happens to come by, sits down, and all of a sudden they have half of their application. So we want to prevent that. So we clear the information after 20 minutes. So if a nurse clicks on the first link, apply for initial license, they will be brought to that application, clearly marked on the top. Also, they'll know where they are in the application. That's another principle of human-computer interaction, is that they know where they are at all times. So it's the page 1, and then I included of 3. It's important for them to know, okay, there's 3 pages I have to go through, so they can, it's clear to them. I thought a lot about how I would outline the fields. So I went with sort of the name at the top and then the field below. I looked at side, I looked at having the name actually in the field, and I like this as it will work well with larger monitors and smaller monitors. It doesn't squish the field name. It gives lots of, if I have a longer field name and they're side by each, then all of a sudden your field gets smaller. So I went with this way. I thought quite a bit about it, and hopefully it works in production. So I also included first name inside of the field, so when the user clicks on that, obviously that disappears, but that's just a placeholder so they know, okay, and looking at it, it kind of brings this all together: first name, middle name. So I feel that it's good design in terms of, okay, I know where all my information goes. So users fill this out. This is pretty straightforward. Anything that's optional is marked optional. Anything that I could do a drop down for, I did. Province, state, country, and as I mentioned before, that helps with data entry and keeping the data clean. So if someone forgets a field, they'll get a pop-up that says, "Oh, required information is missing. Please see highlighted fields for more information." They click OK, and then boom, say you forgot first name and middle name, for example. Those fields are then highlighted red. I see a lot of websites don't highlight them this aggressively, I would say, and so I kept that because not everyone can see colors. And so if this is I thought a good way to, or a good example of how I could make accessibility into my design. And so even if you can't see red, well, you're going to notice that the border are highlighted on one field, so you'll still see that, and you'll still be able to sort of continue through. If I just change the color of the border, a thin border, well, it's if you can't see color, you're not going to differentiate it. So it's sort of that two pieces that bring together that accessibility. So page 2, it's also color mark 2 of 3. Again, drop downs where I can. The style is very is consistent throughout. We have the ability to go back to the last page, to the next page. So now instead of the last page we just had next page, now we have last page and next page. So navigation is clear. So for the program dates and the birth date, I've used the date picker, the date type in HTML. So they'll only be able to enter dates in this format. So if they try to type in like November, it's not gonna work. They have to and it's clearly marked for them that okay, it's month, day, year, and then there's a little picture of a calendar icon that they can click on, and a date picker will come up. I did have a comment in my final overview about the program end date, and that they probably won't know what day that was, and that's I thought that was a fair assessment. So that may be a future upgrade to the system, is that for the program end date, it's maybe program end month and year rather than date, because no one really knows or cares about the exact day that their program ended. All of these pages include clear my info and return home. So if for some reason you have to get out of here fast, you just click this button, your information is gone. And I also have a link to a help page that outlines some frequently asked questions that can be added to over time. Like for example, what government IDs do you accept? Right, that may be a question. That probably would be a question that people would have. So that's actually answered in my help page. Just another thought about the last page. So their information is saved from page to page. Although I didn't have a database for my initial application, this initial application, I was able to save it to the browser memory. So people won't, if you go to the next page and then go to the last page, your information will be saved. So that would be consistent with a full implementation. So when they finish, there actually is one more page there, but I haven't showed it in this in my example. But it's basically, it will be the same idea. Application page 3 of 3, and it's just a few judicial questions and some yes/nos. So it's pretty straightforward. As they submit their application, they have a confirmation. So I think this is important that okay, yeah, we've received your application. We're thanking them. We're telling them to proceed to the welcome desk to make payment and have your ID available. So in terms of their workflow, in their interaction. I mean, this is part of the interaction, but the next part will be to actually pay for and, have their ID confirmed and get their license. So, I wanted the user to know exactly what they had to do next. Didn't want to leave them worried. So, and also wanted to confirm, okay, yeah, we have your information. Here you go. This is what you need to do next. So, although it's a simple page, this is an important one. I also do a countdown on this page, just to kind of since this is a public computer, it counts down and it resets itself back to that initial public splash screen. So, users, the next person that comes in, it'll be reset for them. So the next thing I'll go over is license renewal. So this will be for an existing nurse who's already licensed. They sit down at the computer, they enter their ID and their password. If they forgot their password, you just click on the forgot password button, and that's a functionality stub that I didn't implement, but it would send it to their email, for example. So these are the three pages for renewing your license. So it's similar. It's similar to the initial application. We need to know similar things. But for the renewal, we already have your information. So rather than asking for it again, what I've done is I've pre-filled the fields. So when you log in, you have to use your username and password. We know, okay, yeah, this person's name is Carl Furr. Carl Furr's information is going to be pre-populated. She doesn't, or he doesn't have to enter it all in again since we already have it. We're just asking that, okay, review this. Does it look right? And if not, change it. It has all of the same logic that checks fields to see if they're filled or not, and if not, then the red will display again. But it's pretty consistent, pretty standard. We have the clear, the info, and then the help page. So now on the below this application page 2, I have a screenshot of what the user would see as they clicked on the calendar button. I did get some interesting. So this is implemented from the browser, and this particular one is Microsoft Edge, which I use for my heuristics testing, and I got some good feedback, I think, about this, and that it took a while to enter your birth date, for example, and this is not for this application because their birth date's already filled in, but for the initial application, you have to click a while. Like if you don't notice this little down arrow, one of my users didn't, you have to click quite a while to get back to your birth date. So for a full implementation, I would probably make my own date picker field rather than relying on what the browser implements, because that could change over time, and depending on, in this case it's a public computer, so it's a very controlled environment, but to make it more scalable, I would probably implement my own and try to make it a little bit more obvious that you can click on this April 2021 and then get a better it expands to a better view where you can scroll up and down. So that's just a bit of feedback that I got when I was doing my heuristics testing. Application page 3, so this would be quite similar to your initial application. So have you ever been found guilty of a crime, charged with an offense, expelled from school? So this would be important information for the board to know if you're safe or not. So this field actually isn't pre-filled. So as I was talking to my experts about this is something that we want to be answered every year. So we want to ask them that question, even if it, you weren't guilty last year, or maybe you're guilty this year, and having it pre-filled, there could be some legalities around that. So I did not pre-fill this. You do need to answer these questions every year. So after they submit and pay, they will be taken to a similar thank you page that just explains that they had to proceed to the welcome desk and make payment. So it's the same principle as this thank you page. It also has the countdown as well. So next option is the nursing license status check. So this could be used by either the internal staff or someone coming in to check the status of a license. So this is a table that's been laid out in a similar way. Field name, field type, so someone can search for a name, search for an ID. As they search for a name, I update the table after the key up. So if you type in M, you'll get anyone with an M in there. So and then A, okay, now there's only people with MA. So it kind of whittles down the results, and I like that because instead of someone typing in, okay, I want to find Martha Stewart, okay, Martha Stewart search, and then it would come up with that. But on key up, MAR, okay, well, and then say there's hundreds of thousands of nurses in here, you're going to whittle that list down, and you may not have to type in the whole list, or the whole name to find the person that you're looking for. Same with the ID, so it's on key up. So I thought that was a good way to do the searching rather than having like search buttons and things like that. So this table is laid out with clear heading names. The heading is a slightly different color, so it stands out. The different fields, we've got borders around here to differentiate between this is Carl Fur, the license for 2021. ID is 12345. They're licensed in good standing. Or Martha Stewart has some. You had to. They're licensed with conditions, and you had to conduct for those conditions. And that is a normal thing for regulatory bodies not to put in sort of details. They ask you to call in about that. So that was sort of based on the opinion of the subject matter experts. Page, and then a button to get back to the landing page. So if you're a member of the public submitting a complaint, we have, here are the 2 pages, so I've just put them side by each here, but these would be 2 separate pages, same with the other application pages. It's the same idea, nurse complaint submission, page 1 of 2. We've got the names, the drop down, so the logic is quite similar through the whole application. With the next page and the last page and submit complaint. So I won't go over all that again. This one is there's a complaint detail. So this one could get a bit lengthy as you explain sort of what happened. So I did use a different type of field, and I've let the user know that they're able to click and drag the bottom right hand side of this box if they need more space. So if you have a long complaint, you can click that and drag it before you submit it. And then consistently you would have the complaint received. So for this you don't have to go and pay for anything, and we just said we've received your complaint. We'll contact you with further updates as we conduct the investigation. So the person knows, okay, I don't have anything else to do today, and when they will be in contact with me. So, and then with the regular countdown. So this would be the staff landing page. I've got the 3 different options: manage pending applications, look up a license status, and manage complaints. So initial nursing applications is very similar to a license status, but only internal people would see this. They can search. They've got their open applications, and they can click open application. They can return to the landing page, or they can view removed applications. So part of this is approving, but also denying people. If you approve it, they go to license status check. They're good. They're licensed. But if you deny them, they're removed from this list. So what if you do it by accident? You can click remove applications. So if I click on open application, the page is not broken up into separate pages like I have. This is because it's for internal people. I thought it would get annoying to have to scroll to 3 or 4 pages to look at an application. So it's just one page, and here I've put 2 screenshots side by each of what you would look at if you scrolled. So all the name and address information, and all the nursing education info, personal information. So this would be just what that person entered. So if you continue to scroll, so this is just sort of the bottom of this page, personal information, then internal board information. So this is what the staff member would be interacting with. So they're looking at if the criminal record check result, did I have it, did they pass, did they fail, any notes about this person, so I could type that in, that I'm still waiting for the criminal record check or something. Payment received, if it's been received or not, and then has the ID been confirmed. So I've got a few other options here. I can approve the application, I can deny and remove it, I can save changes to return the applicant list, or I can discard any changes I've made and return to the application list. I can also edit the application. So by default, these applications are sent in by nurses, so they shouldn't be changed, because it's a record of their application. Yeah, everybody makes mistakes, so sometimes the nurse may put in the wrong birthday, spell the name wrong, something, I don't know. So we do have the ability to edit the application, but it requires a supervisor password, just for security. You just that gives a level of security and confidence in this process, that yes, this is what the nurse put in and in their application. So if an application is approved, but one of the, say, the ID hasn't been confirmed, or payment hasn't been received, or there hasn't been a past criminal record check, the system will flag it. So if I click apply, so this, I guess we'll separate these two screenshots. So these are two separate screenshots. So the top screenshot, once they have apply, then they'll get another pop-up box saying, we found a few things wrong with this application. We suggest you review the highlighted items carefully before proceeding. So this is just in case the staff member, oops, I didn't realize they failed their criminal record check, or I didn't put the payment in, or something like that. So we give, it gives them that second sort of confirmation. We found something wrong. Are you sure? And maybe they do want to process it without a payment or something. So they're able to sort of proceed anyway, and that will keep going. If all those other fields are okay, then they wouldn't see this. They would just go. If they do, so that's the approved page. If they click on the edit application button, this sort of red box pops up. It's meant to grab their attention. It's asking for a password. So the password is 1 for everything, all my tests. So if they click 1, then they click log in. It'll say success. You may now edit the application. If not, it'll say failed, and they won't be able to, obviously. So that's everything for managing the applications. For managing complaint, it's kind of a similar process. You have a list of complaints that are kind of active or new or under investigation. They can search for them. They can open their staff member can open the application and see sort of what's going on. Also, if the complaints have been resolved, they're able to go in and look at resolved complaints. So this by default, this would only show sort of active complaints, because the staff member's workflow, they would be only working on active complaints. So it would be more rare that they would look at resolved complaints. So I would pull those out of this view and put it into a different view. So this is what the staff member would see if they open up a complaint. So this is what the person has submitted. Complaint, name and address information. So these are sort of a scrolling field. I didn't separate this into the same as the application. I didn't separate it into separate pages. It's one scrolling page. And so a lot of the functionality is consistent with the applications. The staff member would be interested in the board complaint information. So the status, they would select what the current status is, the finding, what their findings were, and then if there's restrictions, they would enter the restrictions, and then there's details of those restrictions. So that later on, when someone's looking up or calling for a status, they'll be able to just open this up and read it. The edit application works exactly the same as the renewal application. They click this, enter the password, and then they're able to enter the information. So then save changes or discard changes and return to the complaint. So those are the big overviews. I've gone a little bit longer than 10 minutes. Hopefully you're able to sit through this. I thank you very much, and that's it.